When I first learned of Buddhism, I read the Buddha's quote that desire is the root of suffering. At a glance, you could see that this makes some sense, but under more inspection, you begin to have some questions. For example, I could be hungry and desire food. Does that mean that I'm suffering? Not necessarily. As a matter of fact, people have gone on hunger strikes to protest an injustice they saw in the world. So despite the physical pain of not eating, the person on the hunger strike isn't suffering because it was what they were choosing to do in an attempt to improve the world. Religious texts are always questioned when it comes to translation, and the Pali Canon, where this quote comes from, is no different. Desire has been translated to mean thirst, attachment, and acquisition. But I would say that any of these terms could explain what the Buddha meant, depending on the context in which you talk about them. Here's why. As I said before, I could desire something but still not suffer. I could even be in physical pain but not suffer. I could even try to acquire something and not necessarily suffer. But if I desired a specific thing in a specific way, if I was attached to a certain outcome, or if I was trying to acquire a particular result, suffering is the only logical conclusion. Essentially, the Buddha was saying that one's need for a specific outcome is the root of suffering. Or in other words, one's attachment to a specific outcome is why one suffers. When our favorite team loses a game, we suffer. When we embarrass ourselves in front of the person we like, we suffer. When we try to make more money but keep failing, we suffer. We suffer because we needed a certain outcome in these circumstances. If we didn't need a certain outcome, we wouldn't suffer at all. In a way, everyone already knows this. We've lived long enough to see instances where we were okay, whether or not we got a desire fulfilled, versus the times where we really wanted something and we were fretting, nervous, and overwhelmed at what would happen. So what can we do about it? The solution seems simple, right? Just stop caring about the outcome. If you can make the switch and stop right now, that's amazing. But some of us need to deconstruct the process in order to stop. When we look at the things we crave, they all have one thing in common. They will boost our self-esteem. They will make life better. Or so we think. This is the deeper root to the issue of suffering. We believe that when we get this or that, life will be better, and that our perception of ourselves and the perceptions others have of us will be improved. But here's something we never seem to consider. How do you know that this is true? How do you know that getting this amazing thing is actually going to make your life better? Yeah, the truth is you don't. It's just a thought you think is true. After all, if you thought that this thing would make your life worse, you would avoid it. Moreover, if you actually look at your life, you would see that the grass is rarely greener on the other side. After years of patience and long suffering, you finally got the relationship of your dreams. But then, it ends in such a way that it takes you even more years to get over. You got the job, but you celebrate for all of 10 seconds before you realize the gravity of the job, and you are struck with overwhelm. You went on a trip that you've been eyeing for some time, but then you suffer an injury that impedes your mobility. Okay, so all of these things have happened to me, but my stories aren't unique at all. I have friends who have gone through these same exact things, sometimes more than once, and perhaps you have as well. What I realize now is that even though I got the things I desperately wanted, when these things ended, which all things do at some time or another, The same desperation that I had before that kept me wrapped up in anxiety was still ruining my life when I lost these things. Before I got what I wanted, I was anxious. When I got what I wanted, I was happy. But because I believed these things would make my life better and make me see myself as more accomplished and therefore better, I was too happy. It was literal overjoy. Then when it ended, I was depressed. This is the cycle that virtually everyone on the planet knows all too well. But it actually gets even more insidious. When you live as a person who is constantly attached to the outcome, you keep yourself on the hamster wheel of desire, but you think that once you get your needs met, you will be able to finally stop running. But you never stop running. Once you get the symbols of success, you have to get the other symbols of success. Then you have to get the more prestigious symbols of success, which might result in you getting rid of the earlier stuff you used to want. We think that we wouldn't fall for such an obvious trap. We aren't like the corporate fat cats who are driven by greed. But what is greed? Greed is the incessant craving for attainment. Can any of us really say that we aren't guilty of this too? The solution to all of this is found in the present moment. As Eckhart Tolle wrote, whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. Always work with it, not against it. I should just tattoo that shit on my fucking arm or something. If you look at the happiest moments in your life, you might realize that you enjoyed them so much because you surrendered to what was going on. You don't look at the sunset and say, yeah, well, it could have had a bit more purple on the right underneath this cirrus cloud that looks kind of like a fox yawning, but it's all right. The moment you say no to what's going on, the pleasure of the moment ends. It's as if our minds want to manufacture happiness. But when we give it the chance to do it, it fails miserably. Instead of directing the movie, we need to watch and enjoy it for what it is. Instead of trying to boost how people see us and how we see ourselves, we can accept who we are right now because that is truly what we wanted in the first place. Can you imagine how silly it looks to be priceless from the start and then try to become priceless? Because when you actually value what is as much as you value what you think is better, you stop chasing. You're off the hamster wheel. You do what you want to do because you value it. You will feel pain in life, yes, but you will not resist what is and then cause psychological pain. Or in other words, suffering. Instead of buying into the thoughts that say that you are not good enough, you are not enough, that your life is not good enough, know that you were always enough and that life was always enough. Because if you don't make the switch now and step off the hamster wheel, you could maybe get what you want, but you would keep running because some new desire has come to remind you that you are still not enough. Ultimately, as long as you know that you and your life are amazing with or without your desire being met, that is exactly what you will experience. And that is the best gift you could ever give to yourself.